Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode number 19. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us for this Monday show, Steelers Nation. Hopefully everyone enjoying their Labor Day. Dave, good to be back with you. Week 1 of the NFL season officially here.
Yeah, it is. This week, I would imagine, going to go by pretty quick here. Obviously, the first NFL game Thursday night, and that kicks off the NFL season. And we are now less than a week away from the Steelers' Week 1 game. So it's a great day to be alive.
Mm-hmm. And some good college football this weekend. I know you were definitely watching a ton of it. I caught the Georgia-Clemson game, which was a defensive game, but Georgia's defense was just killing Clemson.
Yeah, I got me a few early crushes already. Way early in the process. I really like, and look, this goes back to late last season, right? Romeo Doubs, the wide receiver of Nevada, really intrigued by that kid dating back to last year. And now his quarterback's got my eye, Carson Strong. I had to resist my urge to chart that game from the other night, but I did pull the full game and cut out all of the Nevada possessions there. So I really think that's a kid to watch, and obviously Romeo Doubs I think is going to end up being one of the top wide receivers in the draft class here. The Georgia defense, wow, what can you say about that? I'm not sure I saw that one coming there. And, a couple of kids on Penn State look good too. So it's going to be a fun college season here. And that Florida State Notre Dame game ended up being 18 times better than what I thought that it would be. I think Florida State might give some people some problems this year. And I imagine Clemson's on their schedule, so Clemson could be one of them.
Absolutely, yeah. Mackenzie Milton, a great story there and a great performance. Just Notre Dame hanging on for the victory. You sent me that clip of Carson Strong. I watched. Yeah, a really good performance. Dude has a good arm, good accuracy. And that was a comeback road win, I think, against Cal. So great performance by him.
Yeah, and I think Jonathan's already written up kind of pre-summer, preseason kind of reports on both Strong and Doubs, and I think throughout the season he'll be, kind of giving some people some early insight into some of these early draft prospects of this year's class.
All right, Dave, lots of Steelers things to talk about here. Obviously, there's trade of Ahkello Witherspoon, the status of TJ Watt's contract still not done as of this recording. But, Dave, I want to start things off here on a very sad note here. On Saturday morning, it was announced and then confirmed by multiple people that former Steelers offensive lineman and broadcaster Tunch Ilkin had passed away at the age of 63 after a battle with ALS. And, that one, it just felt really, really soon from the announcement. But obviously, it's a terrible disease, and it's just really tragic, and it's hard to put into words the realization that he's gone now. And I know you watched him as a player and broadcaster. I know him best as a broadcaster, and just a really, by all accounts, I never got to meet him, but from all the people who have, a really genuine, high character, special guy. And I read his book. It was amazing, his story, what he's been through, what he's overcome. And this one just obviously hurt a lot.
Absolutely. He touched a lot of lives, and it just, when you think of Tunch Ilkin and the Steelers, you think of a guy that's just a fixture, a guy that's always there. And anytime you turn on, or for years there, obviously with him and Wolfley and their radio show in the locker room was usually a great show to listen to. Had great interviews on there, and then after every game, he would do the what did he call that? The film room. I forget what he called them specifically, what they titled those there, but on Steelers.com. But he'd break down 3 or 4 plays every week, and that was always a highlight to get to that. And then, let alone, I always try to make it a point sometimes when we would get the all 22 film, trying to figure some things out or whatnot, to go back and actually listen to the radio broadcast because Tunch was real good about breaking down things in game there, what he saw especially there. So, man, you want to talk about a great football mind, back in his day, a good football player, and just really, the most important thing, I think, is a great human being.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see the outpouring of support and condolences from former Steeler players, not only those of recent days, but people that obviously played against him or with him, coaches and just NFL people around the league. And that lets you know the kind of person that Tunch was. Obviously, real active in the community. Did the walk, and I think did stuff at Thanksgiving. I mean, just very, very active. And I think someone put out on Twitter that the world is not as good of a place right now because Tunch Ilkin is gone. But hopefully he's in a greater place now. I'm sure he is, and he's not suffering anymore. It's just sad that to see him go so fast like that.
It is. I think that point that person had made is so true. And yeah, there are offensive linemen who never coached with him that have learned from him. I know Kevin Mawai was tweeting about learning the Tunch punch, and Tunch was never the biggest or the strongest dude, so it came down to technique and film study and football IQ, and he had all that. And as a broadcaster, I think what's really special with him, because a lot of guys who have played the game can't explain the game in terms that everyone can understand, just because they know it and they can play it well, but they can't always articulate it in a way that it resonates with other people, with you and I. But Tunch could really, really well. To the casual fan, to the X's and O's junkie, they could all process what he was saying, and that's such a unique and underrated skill of a player turned broadcaster. And then, of course, as a person, most importantly, what he did for the community, for the Steelers. Man, he's with the Steelers for over 40 years as a player and broadcaster. And unless your last names are Rooney, you're probably not with the team for 40 years. And so that's pretty special to me.
And, he has some big shoes to fill, obviously, with Myron Cope. I think he came on that broadcast around the time Myron, was kind of winding it down there. Mm-hmm. And, at that time, that was big shoes. Out goes Myron, and in comes Tunch. And he seemed to be a natural for it. And he had that excitement to his voice, where it was color analyst and fan combined, and right. Not just fan of the Steelers, but fan of football in general. I mean, that's a guy that can watch any game and get excited about it there. And man, thinking back to specific kind of calls, I don't think I will ever be able to watch that. The fumble by Jerome Bettis, against the Colts in the playoffs, the same. I was obviously back home in Pensacola, and every time I could, I would, if I could get the radio broadcast somehow, I would cue that up. I don't think I had it obviously queued up on that day, but it wasn't soon afterwards. And then obviously going through, all those, NFL shows that they do after the fact, and especially when you get to that play specifically, the Bettis fumble, him and Bill Hillgrove's call of that is just something that you never forget. And Tunch going from the drama of the actual fumble happening to the fan side of him coming out, so they got to tackle him, and how he had that high kind of higher pitch when he would get excited right. to him, and once again, I'll never be able to watch that play again and not think of Tunch calling it. I don't think.
Yeah, no, that's an all-timer for sure. Just one last story I have from Tunch, and this is from his book, and I didn't know this until I had read. He was cut his rookie year initially out of camp, and so he spent the first two or so months of the season just as a free agent, just waiting for a phone call. So he's back home out in Chicago, and just to try to stay in shape, he picked up a Chicago park football league and was just playing out there. And then the Steelers called him in October. There was an injury, and they signed him back, and he never left the team again. So this is a guy that just loved football, that put in the work, lived the American dream, born in Turkey, coming to the States and getting education, and then just going from playing football in a Chicago park to playing in the NFL for 143 starts, and just a remarkable career and a remarkable man.
Well, you want to talk about the root of versatile linemen too, right? I mean,
Right.
that guy, if you needed it to, he could play any spot on that offensive line. But I really think he started coming into his own when they kept him at one spot, for a period of time there. So yeah, great loss, definitely for Steelers Nation for sure. And I know a lot of people in that building over there on the south side are going to be mourning for a little while. A lot of people that worked with him every day over there, and boy, Craig Wolfley just inseparable for years there too. So very, very, very sad.
Absolutely, it is. So our thoughts and prayers go out to the Ilkin family and Steelers Nation as a whole, because everyone's hurting today. But Dave, tough as it is to segue here, we're going to move on because there are a lot of other Steelers things to talk about, including some big news that occurred on Friday. It was in just a couple hours after the podcast, in which I said the Steelers will not be making any more trades, and I said that very confidently because I figured I'm not going to be wrong about that. I was very wrong, so proven wrong in almost record time here as the Steelers. Just shortly after our podcast, traded for Seattle Seahawks cornerback Ahkello Witherspoon, sending a 2023 fifth-round pick for Witherspoon. And so Witherspoon's a guy that's a long, wiry corner that's a good press corner. Came out of Colorado as someone who was raw, but had the height, the length, the speed, the overall athleticism, and spent 4 years with San Francisco improving. Signed a one-year deal with Seattle in the offseason, kind of fell out of favor there in the summer. And now he's a Pittsburgh Steeler. So a lot to talk about with the Steelers' newest cornerback.
Yeah, I'll hold hands with you there because I thought I figured they were done. In fact, I think we talked about the article I wrote the other day that only five other times in the history of Kevin Colbert being in Pittsburgh since 2000 has the team made a trade for a player within that very limited time frame, being the once the final preseason game has been played up until before week one is played. I mean, once again, you're talking about a very, very specific time to try to get some things done. And I think we reviewed the 5 names, and not a lot to get excited about when you go back and think about those 5 names in totality there. I think I wrote at the end of that article, though, if they do wind up trading for somebody this year, probably not going to be a very high value player. And with Ahkello Witherspoon and his contract, the way they did his contract with Seattle, they gave him they paid him $4 million basically. For the one season, and they're only getting out of $1.5 million of it because that's the base salary part that the Steelers will take on. They gave him a $2.5 million signing bonus as part of that, and they built in a voidable year to help them with cap purposes on that. So that's a lot of money. I mean, $2.5 million, and the guy never plays a snap for you. Didn't they basically do the same thing with B.J. Finney?
Yeah, that's true.
Last year as well, too, there on top of it. So a bit of a surprise that the Steelers did trade for somebody, but I think all along we said, hey, this team could really use 2 defensive backs, right? They could use a safety that can play on special teams that's versatile, and they could probably use another corner, albeit we kind of envisioned it, probably, at least I did, maybe a guy that can help you in the slot. Mm-hmm. That's not Witherspoon's game for sure. But look, whatever happens, Kevin Colbert has done his best to address this roster throughout. I mean, even from the time the mandatory minicamp ended, with the whole DeCastro thing. I mean, you went Trey Turner, you went Melvin Ingram, Witherspoon, you add a guy like Carlos Joseph. I mean, it's not for a lack of trying, that's for sure there, and that's what you would expect your general manager to do in situations such as this. Now, Witherspoon in particular, you did a great film room on him. I think Jonathan followed it up with a look at maybe the when he was a 49ers player against the Steelers a couple years ago. I mean, Kevin Colbert has a type, right?
Yeah, it's the NFL's type of that long, 6 foot, lean type of corner.
And Sparky as Sparky could be. Boy, you go back and look at his Spark numbers, and you look at his RAS number, which I think has become the new Spark. And I mean, just green all over that. So height, weight, speed, kind of player there. Why, the biggest question I think people will have is, okay, the 49ers drafted him. The knock on him coming out was, all right, not a bad cover guy, an athletic specimen, not the most physical guy. And in fact, there's a video of John Lynch sitting down before the 2000 or during the 2018 combine, I think, because Witherspoon's 2017, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2017 he came.
And they were talking about John Lynch, kind of a story and all like that, and he talked about Witherspoon and how it was obvious on his college tape, which kudos to you going back. I think you were the one that did the actual draft profile on Steelers Depot on him. One of the things you highlighted on there was his play against the run specifically, and how he's not a huge kind of physical kind of player there. Well, lo and behold, John Lynch said a year later at the 2018 Combine that that was something that they addressed with Witherspoon during his rookie season, and they had seen some improvement in that, but go on out, played his first 4 seasons there with 49ers. I thought it was a testament to him. He kind of got benched later in his career with 49ers, really took it, was a man about it, went up and asked for full special teams work, on the heels of getting benched. So I think that says a lot about his character there. Fast forward to this past offseason, he is an unrestricted free agent. As we mentioned, the Seattle Seahawks signed him to what's technically, or I guess you can look at it as a 1-year, $4 million deal, and then he doesn't even make it to the regular season with them. So within that, for the people, for the pessimistic people that say, well, there you go. I mean, what's wrong with him, Alex, that he didn't even play a single down for the Seattle Seahawks?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, anytime you acquire a player through, a cut down or a trade, that means that someone's wanting to get rid of him, and usually that means there's some sort of issue. So no player is perfect overall. It certainly has been some weird moments in his career with the 49ers. I think last year, getting benched at some point. Was envisioned by Seattle to be their starter this year, and it felt like he was running in that role early, and then things kind of fell apart, and he lost out playing time later in the preseason, had one rough game, I think in that second or third contest, and got beat for a long gain on the first drive and barely played the rest of the way. I will say, let's start with this. To your point, because to me the biggest issue coming out of Colorado with Witherspoon was the tackling and physicality. And watching last year, watching this preseason, I've definitely seen an improvement there. He's a much better tackler, not a great one, but certainly in a much better place than where he was coming out of Colorado. Now, he was young coming out of Colorado, underclassman, hadn't played a ton of football, played 1 year of high school, again, coming out a year early out of Colorado. And so it's expected and natural to see some improvement there, but you have seen it. And so that's really good and really important. But to me, he's kind of that classic man cover corner that's long, good at the catch point, has good ball skills, finds the football well, has some stiffness because he's such a tall, long, leggy corner. So some in-breaking routes can give him trouble sometimes, but covering things vertically and playing the football in the air, to me, are strong points.
Absolutely, and I think where you've seen him, at least where I have seen him on the tape, get in trouble is when people are running away from him.
Yeah,
towards the middle of the field. Yeah,
exactly.
In coverage there. In other words, if you get in a situation, I mean, in fact, I think if you go back to I think it was last year, right? Technically, I think you can charge him with giving up 2 touchdowns. One of them was a red zone situation, I believe, against was it Seattle? A guy running away from him across the formation there in a man coverage situation. And then the other one, I think, was in week 2 against the Jets. an extended play situation. It's really hard to get on a guy to keep on a guy for as long as that play extended against the Jets there. So not. I didn't find that to be too terribly alarming there. I mean, when you get into a fire drill situation, especially one that long, it's hard to keep up with a guy that you're covering in that situation there. But I think in some of the other instances and some of the big gainers that he's given up, it's been things where people have beaten him with a move and then kind of maybe an in-breaking route, a dig, or someone just really coming across the field with him in trail. He seems to get kind of lost in space out that way. I think maybe some of the draw to him for Seattle was the fact that don't they still play a lot of cover 3 type situation where he's off the ball and somebody that can work deeper and then come forward a lot easier. But on the flip side, he's not going to get any much more physical, I don't think, than what he is now. Yeah, there was some improvements there, but I think you're going to see some times where he's going to be allergic to contact on the tape there. But once again, like you said, a long corner that especially in obvious passing down situations, probably a guy that you're not going to mind having on the field too terribly much. It's just everything else that goes along with that. If your rushing coverage are not going hand in hand type situation, really sets up to be a liability there. He athletic guy. He is what he is, I think, right now at this point.
Yeah, I should be careful when I say he's a good man cover corner. He can cover things vertically. He can cover the go ball. He can cover the comeback on some of those breaking routes. He gets into trouble. That's why I think Seattle signed him to play that deep third and kind of their more traditional cover 3 defense. Yeah, I mean, the ball skills are there, though. He's definitely an interesting guy, and certainly the NFL is looking for these 6-foot-plus corners with length that can match up against all these, height, weight, speed, triangle number receivers that just seem to grow on trees. And the Steelers, of course, have one in Chase Claypool, so they know the value of that matchup well, and they're trying to find guys who can defend that. That's why they drafted Justin Lane, although that it's not panned out too terribly well. That's why they are high on James Pierre, who profiles in a similar but in some ways can be a better way than Ahkello Witherspoon. But I think the goal is to try to get as many of those answers defensively with those bigger corners that can win vertically.
Who is this more of an indictment of? Is this an indictment of James? And it might be yes to both of these, but to certain degrees. And I have a feeling I know which way you're going to go with this, but more of an indictment to Justin Lane or to James Pierre? Or yes?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he should be ahead of Lane. Will he be ahead of Pierre? I mean, we'll have to see. It's kind of hard to expect that's going to be the case out of the gate, considering Pierre's had a strong summer overall, maybe a touch overrated in terms of his overall play. But he is, to me, the more physical player. He's been the guy. He knows his system more, and I think he's earned that right. And so we'll see what happens. But my guess would still be that Pierre's going to be the guy ahead of Witherspoon, presumably in nickel packages with Sutton still sliding inside. So could Witherspoon just be there for good depth? Could he have some sort of dime roll potentially? As you mentioned, kind of best in those obvious pass situations. That's possible. But it was curious to see Witherspoon specifically just because we thought more maybe slot guy, something like that. But if they're going to have Sutton play on the inside a decent amount, then you're really kind of lacking depth on the outside as well. Justin Lane, it's been so inconsistent that at best it's still tough to trust him. And so I understand that aspect of bringing a guy that is certainly better and more proven like Witherspoon.
What does it say if they get this point, and from what we've seen and heard from all of preseason, if they get to week 1 now and they don't obviously we don't know how the nickel situation's going to go just yet here. We think that we know which side we want to see this thing to go, but it sure seems like the Steelers have been kind of fighting it, and then with Arthur Millette back in the fold, it kind of makes you wonder what's going to happen there. But what happens if obviously in base situations, Cam Sutton's going to play on the outside opposite Joe Hayden. But, I guess what I'm getting at is I'm going to be very disappointed if they don't give. I'm not going to tolerate any James Pierre slander. I'm just going to put it out there because I think he's done everything that needs to be done to at least get first crack at that thing. And if it goes off the rails, okay. But then maybe you view Witherspoon as being that fallback guy, that guy that's got experience, that if things go horribly bad with Pierre in those situations, you don't want to get into a spot, I don't think, where Witherspoon's your every down, obviously your every down guy on the outside. As mentioned, you want him to be more of a passing down, kind of player there, and it'd be interesting to see them put him in. But on the flip side too, I mean, is he a guy that right out of the chute in Witherspoon that you're dressing?
Probably.
He's not that big of. I mean, I would much rather have Lane as a gunner on special teams.
It's true. I mean, Witherspoon's played some on special teams, as you mentioned last year, trying to embrace that role. I think he played maybe 100 or so snaps. I don't know exactly on the units. That's a good question. I haven't kind of gone through all the active and inactive possibilities.
Well, we know Sutton's going to be active. We know Joe Hayden's going to be active. We know Pierre's going to be active. I mean, past your top three there, what's going to happen with Millette? You would think he's going to be active, right?
You would think, just for all the hats he can wear. I mean, it just may be partially dependent on what other groups look like, who's healthy in other areas of this team, and whether decisions get made. Do you keep up with Zach Gentry, or do you make him inactive to get that extra corner out there and stuff like that? So we'll see. I mean, it depends obviously on some of the playbook stuff and how quickly he picks up those kinds of things and all that standard stuff to talk about. But I think they're obviously going to have him active sooner than later. Otherwise, why trade for the guy?
Right. Yeah, I would agree. How would you rate this? How would you rate the player overall?
Yeah, I mean, an improving one, a better one than I saw in Colorado. When I looked over my scouting report, the first thing before I got into his NFL tape was, man, I hope this guy's a lot better tackler than what he used to be. And I have seen that. And according to Pro Football Reference, and again, stats here can vary depending on the outlet, but they have him down for just one missed tackle last season, a 4.8% missed tackle rate. And so that's a really encouraging number. And again, trying to find that guy that can run, because his cornerback group was not the fastest group in the world. It was pretty slow overall, look at 40 times and just overall play. And so Pierre's a good athlete. I think he's better than his 40 time indicates. But it's nice to get that really athletic corner, because the Steelers have a lot of corners who are more savvy type of guys and like really good athletes. And so it is nice to have that kind of guy, because that overall blend of, again, height, length, speed, ball skills, it is pretty tough to find. And it is good to collect those guys.
Yeah, and I think overall, if you look at PFF's grades on him, especially last year at one point, wasn't a bad cover corner. And I don't know exactly. I haven't gone through every snap yet. Where did it go? What got him benched with the 49ers?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about when that happened. I mean, it was after that Jets game. I think I can't remember. It's such a he did get injured last year. Foot injury, I think. Yeah.
But that didn't cause him to miss that many games there. And then obviously, I think the Jets game was week 2 though, and there wasn't. I mean, in the first 2 games that I watched, there wasn't anything glaring that I remember seeing that thought that I went, oh wow. Yeah, I wonder if that's why he got benched, kind of thing there. It just seems like he kind of fell out of favor with, I don't know, with something. Maybe not being able to get on the field with for a period of time there. But I guess I'm still trying to figure out what actually got him benched with the 49ers.
Yeah, that is the red flag there, is because there was a lot of up and down play in San Francisco, and then obviously Seattle was high on him initially and soured on him pretty quickly after one, I think, poor preseason performance. And so he's a guy that has come into these places with a lot of fanfare and potential and flashes a good play, but it hasn't been able to stick consistently. And so that'll be, I think, the key for him.
Because he ended up dressing last year. Let's see, he was it was after that Jets game. Yeah, it was the next.
I think he might have gotten hurt in that game. I can't remember.
Okay, he was inactive the next 2 games, and then he came back for 4 games, and He did start, it looks like, I think, or played considerable amount of snaps in that first game back in week 5. Did you watch any of that Miami game? I don't think I watched any of that one.
No, I haven't. Maybe there's something there because it says he played 41 snaps in that one and then played 0 the next week, 13 snaps the next week, then 0, and then became an inactive for 3 weeks, came back, barely played, was a special teams guy, and then started the last 3 games of the season. So it was very much a roller coaster type of season in terms of just his overall usage for this defense.
Yeah, maybe we need to watch that game against the Dolphins. Maybe there's some clues in there. I did not watch that one, but it wasn't really anything that I saw in the first 2 games against Arizona and the Jets that I ran through quickly there, and I think I spot checked something towards the end of the year there against Arizona and Seattle, and didn't look bad there. So I don't know. We'll jump on that Dolphins tape, I'm sure, at some point here.
Yeah, and then just a couple notes here, and again, talking about the comp formula can get a little messy. You can get very messy sometimes, but according to Nick Corte, which is the guy that I trust more than anyone else when it comes to comp stuff, because Witherspoon was signed this offseason, and even though he was traded to Pittsburgh, he's still, it appears, going to count against the Steelers in terms of their balance sheet when it comes to comp stuff. And so, according to Corte, trading for Witherspoon likely cancels out the projected 5th-round comp pick this team is going to get for Matt Filer. And so the Steelers are already without hardly any day 3 picks next season, just a 7th-rounder. As things sit here today, it's reasonable to assume they will not get a 5th-round pick for Matt Filer now because they traded for Ahkello Witherspoon.
Right, and I would think only the playing time now at this point of maybe Haig or even Witherspoon would be the only thing that could maybe affect that, right?
Right. Yeah. The other part of this is that they could get a 5th-round pick for Mike Hilton if Joe Haig doesn't play,
25%.
Yeah, 25%. Okay, so that they could get that 5th-round pick back for Mike Hilton. We've kind of mentioned that for a little while now that could still be in play. So just an update there. It is still a little hard to wade through all this. The comp formula is still pretty complicated to me, at least, but I do want to note that.
Yeah, I mean, it almost does feel like, and it's too early to know exactly how it's going to play out, but this could end up being a player that cost you 2 5th-round picks, right?
Yeah, in the sense of the actual 5th-round pick, and then the 5th-rounder that gets canceled out for Filer. Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
Right, but I don't think Kevin Colbert's sitting back and got the spreadsheets out as far as that's concerned. But look, you try to make your team as better, better as best you can through whatever means. So once again, they felt the need for a long cover corner, and they went out and got one. And I mean, look, you can normally run down the checklist when it comes to these type things. A sparky dude, a guy with pedigree, cheap and good character, right? And I think even going all the way back to your pro day tracker in 2017, they had a couple people there. Now there was like 3 or 4 guys worth seeing at that Colorado pro day, but I think Bruner was there. What was one? I forget who else was there.
It was Terry Cousin, actually, the player engagement. But I think because he was a DB in the NFL, so I think they wanted to bring him out there because they had all DBs. It was Chidobe Awuzie and Tedrick Thompson and Witherspoon, so they wanted to get an actual DB to go watch him.
Right, and come to find out, I mean, Witherspoon was drafted 28 spots ahead of where the Steelers drafted Cameron Sutton. So
it's interesting.
So it makes you kind of wonder what it's one of those hypotheticals. What would have happened if Witherspoon had fell down to him there, or were they maybe thinking, could Witherspoon have been the guy instead of Cam Sutton? But once again, I think it goes back to Kevin Colbert has it tight, man. I mean, after the fact, you can look at some of these things, and I mean, I went right to his SPARK score, kind of knowing what I thought I was going to find, and boom! I mean, this guy is highly athletic in Witherspoon.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've taken some corners that have not been super athletes. Mike Hilton was a below average athlete overall. Cam Sutton was an average athlete when he came out. Justin Lane was, I think, above average. I don't know how he tested. He ran like a 4.5. So I mean, he was a decent athlete, but not a Witherspoon's level.
I'm talking like free agents, or trade guys.
Right, yes. But Witherspoon, highly athletic, and certainly that can be attractive for for cornerbacks trying to run and play the ball in today's NFL. So, by the way, here in trading for Ahkello Witherspoon, of course, a roster move had to be made, a corresponding move, and Henry Mondeau, defensive lineman Henry Mondeau, has been released. He should circle back to the practice squad, though.
You would think so. You would think that, they had that open spot. I think they have 15 that they kind of agreed to terms to, and I think really only officially 7 or 8 of those have signed. All the rest of them should be official, I would think, later on today here. Of course, several of them probably had to go through the COVID protocol and all
right.
like that. That might have been the hang up on there. So, boy, where did all the defensive linemen go all of a sudden?
Yeah, they're down to 6 again, I guess.
Yeah, so that must have, they probably had it in the back of the mind that something could have happened like that. But now it does indeed look like Henry Mondeau's not going to be on the week 1. At least on the week 150. I don't know. He could be part of the 55 though, couldn't he?
Mm-hmm. Elevate. Yeah, he could elevate him. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me if they did.
So we'll have to see how that goes later on in this week. But the old 53 became a much newer 53 a couple of times since that originally happened last Tuesday.
It did, and just looking really far out again with the lack of day 3 picks, it's going to be a really boring draft next season for us on day 3. The way things are looking right now, Dave, it's not going to be a whole lot for us to mock or talk about, but we'll see. Kevin Colbert's been as active as ever, and certainly, he's been incredibly aggressive this offseason, and he believes that window is still firmly open and is making as big a push as possible. When you sign Trey Turner to replace the Castro, you bring in Melvin Ingram, breaking some rules there to do so. You trade for Schobert, you trade for Witherspoon. The recent, trades of Minka and moving up for Devin Bush, you've seen Kevin Colbert be as aggressive as he's ever been in his last final years of having been, and probably his last final years of being the Pittsburgh Steelers general manager.
And Witherspoon will talk to the media after practice today, the team has announced.
All right, good deal. By the way, here, quick segue in terms of speaking to the media. Well, I'm considering us real media here for the moment. We'll be talking.
We're not. Don't do that. You're going to get us in trouble. They're going to make the real media mad.
Mm-hmm. We'll be talking to, as we always do, grab a beat writer here for the Bills game because it is Bills week here. We're talking to Matt Perino, Buffalo Bills beat reporter for Syracuse.com. That'll be on Wednesday's show. So just want to tease and preview that. We'll be talking to Matt here and getting some insight on the Bills.
It's that time of year again.
Yeah, it really is. So that means football is back. Steelers playing this Sunday against Buffalo. And TJ Watt should be playing against the Buffalo Bills. But as of this recording, and things can and certainly will change here, hopefully sooner than later, TJ Watt's still without a new contract. I was really thinking and hoping and fingers crossed that we'd be talking about the TJ Watt mega extension for this episode. But it has yet to happen.
Yep, it'll happen probably 5 minutes after we end this show.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised. I not stunned, but I kind of figured it would have happened yesterday afternoon. Look, the Steelers technically have what's called, I guess they consider a bonus day today that they're going to take advantage of. Generally, you would not expect them to have a practice on Tuesday and then get back after it again on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday there. So with Monday kind of being a bonus day, and we'll see what happens with Watt, right? I mean, he's gone this far without practicing, without a contract, now unless something gets done, or maybe it's already done for all we know. But could you see him doing an about face and saying, "Well, I made it this far, I still don't have a contract. Let me go on out there on this Monday and practice"?
Yeah, my first thought was, well, if that's the case, then what would be the whole training camp not working thing for? It just kind of defeats the purpose of that. But at the same time, if you don't start practicing now, you're not going to be literally able to play in Sunday's game or ready to play for Sunday's game. So it is maybe a bit different situation practicing now versus practicing on August 2nd and the beginning of training camp.
It will be interesting to see what happens later on today, whether or not he does or doesn't practice fully. Let me tell you, if I'm him and I've taken that stance throughout this thing and I still don't have, and if technically there's still some things to be decided, you're not getting me out there. I'm doing the same thing I was doing during training camp.
That risk remains the same of getting hurt
Sure.
or something happening. That was the
Sure.
whole point
I
of
mean,
this.
you get hurt and tear up a knee, and there goes that before you sign the contract and all. So, if it's me, I'm not working today if I don't have a contract. I mean, I'm doing the stuff on the side and all the stuff that I've done, individual kind of drill stuff. But there's no way you can get me working in team drills today if I still don't have a deal in place.
Yeah, I will say, and I've been very trying to calm the masses and preach patience and knowing these things take longer than maybe what you ideally would like. But my level of angst at least has risen a bit today because I really thought it would happen for the weekend. You get ready for Monday with a new deal. You're practicing. You got a week to get ready to get your prep in, get some conditioning back, and be ready for Buffalo. Probably still not playing the full complement of snaps, but being kind of close. So today's the first day where I'm kind of going, okay, let's get this ball rolling, let's get this deal done, and close this story. And so I'm a little more angsty today.
Just about because his availability to week 1, right? You still think the deal gets done, right?
I still think,
is
but
there
I
any
thought
chance that it doesn't get done?
a tiny bit, just because maybe this is just my own preconceived notion that I'm sticking to, that I thought it would get done this weekend. I'd be ready for week 1 and hit the ground running here with a new work week for the Steelers and just be good to go. So there is a slight level of angst that's been raised for me for the first time this whole process.
I don't have if we get to Friday night, maybe mine will rise. But look, I mean, Art Rooney II has said all along, Kevin Colbert has said all along, the goal is to get T.J. Watt signed to an extension. I mean, how many times have they? And really, I don't count Le'Veon Bell because I think if it wasn't for Le'Veon Bell's agent in that situation, and plus you had a different time frame too. Remember, because of the franchise tag there, that stuff has to get done by July. Okay, with extensions on guys on tags. So it's not like you have the full complement of the whole offseason and outlook at your cap situation and things like that to get that done. But I mean, 9 times out of 10, when Kevin Colbert and Art Rooney II tell you they have a goal to get something done, don't they generally get that done?
They do, and
I know there's always the one time that it doesn't. Sure,
and I still think it will get done. But I'll be honest here and say my level of angst has risen a little bit because I just thought it would get done by now. I'm trying to. I know it's a mega contract. It's a complicated deal. The Steelers' old school way of doing contracts could present some sort of issue, I'm sure, and add another layer of negotiation to things. But I mean, you've been at this thing. I know it goes on, and deadlines for action and all that kind of stuff. But you've been at this thing all summer. I mean, Watt wants to get it done. The Steelers want to get it done. At what point do you just make an agreement here? I mean, what else is there to talk about?
Maybe and look, we're not on the other side of things too. There, if you go back and you look at some of these recent contracts with these guys, Hayward, Tuitt, DeCastro, who am I missing here? Joe Hayden, Troy Polamalu, Cortez Allen. A lot of these guys were last minute deals there. Now, could this be the Steelers wanting to make sure that they don't have a cap number absolutely set on something here because something else might come down, in other words, we want to keep our options open. We have this already set to go. We've agreed to terms, but we're going to put it off to the side here and wait for you to sign this thing just to make sure that nothing else gives us the ability. The longer you wait, the more options that you have. Should you have to do something like, we need to make this signing bonus a little lower, or heavier because we need this cap space here. You see what I'm saying there? Because it would make sense to do it as late as possible, and once again, for all we know, they have agreed to terms on this, but it just has not signed yet.
Right. Well, that only makes sense if Watt's going to come back and practice. If he's still going to sit out, then you're doing yourself more harm than good by waiting. And if he's not going to practice while that deal's not officially official.
Well, I would think that yes, especially after you get through today, and then you look forward to, let's say, Wednesday, okay? Most definitely. I mean, you'd obviously like to have him out there today on the practice field, but at a minimum out there Wednesday, starting to get knocked around a little bit there because that's the time. In my opinion, look, I think regardless now, I think we have reached the point now where I think we should expect, assuming T.J. Watt does play against Buffalo, that he's not going to play 65 snaps. Right. I think you have reached a point already at this point now where you're going to have a mix and match of Melvin Ingram in there taking some of those snaps.
Definitely. No, I agree with you there. But just his own overall preparedness, and the sooner you get him out there, the better. Because he has missed a ton of time. There's just no sugarcoating that. So we'll see. I still think it will obviously happen, but again, I'm a little more angsty today than I have been at any point in this process.
I mean, and the flip side of this is you could still be in a giant stare down situation here, because, and this is going to kind of work into another topic that we're going to talk about today. If you think about it, this is potentially the last mega positional deal. In other words, a player that's top 5 at his position type of money that you could see the Steelers do for quite some time, to be honest with you. And in other words, this is an opportunity to draw the line in the sand for at least a considerable point longer when it comes to, and I should paraphrase that because I think we all accept the fact that Minka a year from now. But I mean, something this kind of magnitude, because I think we all agree that Minka is not going to be making the money that T.J. Watt's about to make, or we think he's going to about to make here. But this gives you an opportunity to at least keep your boundaries set when it comes to that guaranteed money past year one type situation. Whereas, if I'm Watt's agent, I mean, you look at you definitely have those Myles Garrett and Joey Bosa contracts out and say, look at the full guarantees here. Could it be a stare down situation when it comes to the whole guaranteed money thing? Absolutely, because the rest of the parameters I think are very easy to draw out on this, and we've drawn them out all off season there, it's just, is there still that stare down when it comes to the guaranteed money past year one?
Possibly. Absolutely. It could be. And so if it is, the question is who blinks first, because it's been a long staring contest. And if that's the case,
you obviously don't think the issue here is with the new money average.
I defer to you on most of this. I don't have a lot of super independent thoughts on my own with the contract, but no, I don't think it is. I mean, they know where the market's at. They know Watt's going to top. Unless Watt wants to hit 30 and the Steelers want to just put him slightly above Bosa at 28.5, unless that's an issue, which I don't really think it is. I mean, I don't think the overall, average is going to be the big sticking point here.
Right, I don't either. And in fact, as Joel Corey helped lay it out on on the show a couple 6 weeks ago, whatnot. The fact that the guaranteed money might not be where fully guaranteed money might not be where it needs to be. That's where you make them pay, especially in the front end. I mean, I really think you could see a situation here where, you're talking, $50 million, Watt walking away from the table with around $50 million in this thing just in 2021 alone. And
that's the most important number, is the fully guaranteed number. I know the average yearly value is the shiny number we talk about, but for the agent standpoint, from the player standpoint, whatever you can get fully guaranteed is the most critical number of any contract.
Right. And I mean, even though the Steelers have a high percentage of paying these things out and all like that, I mean, there is it virtually guaranteed. It's not fully guaranteed. I mean, it's virtually guaranteed, but it's not fully guaranteed, and obviously there would be some sort of trigger. If the Steelers, it'll be a huge win for the Steelers if the Steelers walk away from this, still having their boundaries set when it comes to guaranteed money. I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to get away with it, but it's one more time that they have, right? And the thing is, even regardless of how this thing is structured, there is going to be some sort of a sizable trigger, roster option bonus in March with this thing, right? That almost guarantees Watt, that they aren't going to walk away from it, because it forces the Steelers into a situation where they have to make a decision on Watt 3 days into the new league year in 2022 in March, right? And whether that be some sort of those, the new thing now is these rolling guarantees where when you get to that next option bonus, once you trigger that, it fully guarantees the next one after it. You know what I'm saying? So I think, could we get in a situation like that with this deal? Because let's face it, if you give Watt let's say a $45 to $50 million signing bonus now, what are the odds that you're going to cut him next March when another $8 million or $9 million is due?
Very, very low. Hopefully zero.
Right. So, the devil's in the details here, and boy, would I kill to be on the fly.
I know.
I would love to see how all this goes down, and maybe at one point Kevin Colbert will disclose. There's some things that go on. Yeah, but I mean, you know what I'm getting at. The nerd side of me when it comes to this, I would love to see what happens in these situations. Okay, why exactly did it take up until 3 days or 4 days before the season starts there? But I guess, long story short, people don't care so much about that. They just want, don't tell me about the labor pains. Just show me the baby. Where's this Watt new deal at? I still don't think there's any reason to worry about it, getting done. We'll see. And be honest with you, if it doesn't get done, I think it's a huge, huge, huge slap in the face to T.J. Watt to even expect him, and I'll get some pushback on it. I think it's a huge slap in the face to expect him to play for $10 million in 2021. I do.
Not that I want to envision or go down this rabbit hole too much, but if that was the case, I mean, if T.J. Watt doesn't get the deal done, I mean, if he sits out hypothetically, and there's no indication, of course, that he would, but if we assume that for a second, I mean, where does he go from there? We're just doing the same dance, a year from now, and that contract would it toll or would it not toll?
There is no he becomes subject to fines and all like that.
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of stuff there. I mean, it's not like a I had to check on the toll language to see if something like that in that situation would toll.
Right. It's not a Bell situation where he hasn't signed the contract.
Where it was a tag situation because he's technically under contract. I mean, I suppose it could toll. When is the last time
he wouldn't get the accrued or credited seasons though, right? Or would he? I mean, what list does he get? Does he just made enacted? What list does he even get placed on? I guess is the question.
It would be a suspended list, I would think.
I guess. Do you get accrued seasons for you? I don't think you get that for being on suspended list or whatever, unless it's just general inactive list.
Yeah, that's a part of we don't. There's a part
anyway,
that
I'm taking you down the rabbit hole.
Right. We need to find out the definite answers to those questions, but hopefully we don't have to use them for a practical purpose there. But I'll go out and say it. I mean, I don't think you should expect him to play for $10 million, period. I know a lot of people are just mad at me saying that, but you got to have somebody on this show that respects and understands the business side of football. I'm not saying you don't, obviously, but you got to, I am that guy, and I think everything that he's done to this point, I think it would be a huge, huge insult to expect T.J. Watt to play for $10.089 million in 2021.
To go back to your original question about contracts post Watt and post Minka, I know you had kind of talked about it on Twitter the last day or two about, theoretically, hypothetically, what's the next big contract coming after those guys? Where did you kind of land on?
I think it's a great question. I mean, obviously, a year from now, we'd expect Minka to become either the league's highest paid safety or at worst top three. I mean, if he has another All-Pro 2021 season, I don't see how you get and 4 interceptions and just basically been the player that he's been up until now. I mean, he's most definitely going to be top three and probably easily the top paid safety in the league. But even then, are we talking about 18, 19, $20 million number? I suppose you could get up that high. But what happens past him?
Yeah.
Where does the next, mega top five at his position contract come from with the Steelers, which would, if you have trouble answering that question, then it gives even more credence to the idea that they better spend their money now, their cash now, on a guy like Watt and at least secure some of that defense there, because I think it gets dicey where you look at star players the Steelers will have to pay the mega deal out to here in the next, 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah, it's a fair question.
Other than Mika.
Right, sure. You could throw out names like, Devin Bush does turn things around and have a really rock-solid season, then maybe that's still in play. I know there's the fifth-year option as well with him. Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, some names that have been suggested. I think you talked about Kevin Dotson maybe, but, obviously that stuff is so far in the future. Things can and will change so much, it's hard to even think about it in any sort of concrete terms.
All right, while we're on the subject there, where are you at right now on Devin Bush? Can you envision Devin Bush – can you envision his fifth-year option being picked up? And B, can you envision a deal that's top 5 off-the-ball linebacker ahead of him playing out that fifth-year option year? So technically, for people to understand the timeline here, next offseason is when the Steelers would have to decide whether or not they need to pick up Bush's fifth-year option, but that fifth-year option would be for the 2023 season. But once again, once you pick up, nowadays in the language in the CBA, once you exercise that, it becomes fully guaranteed. So, do you see them from where you sit right now? And obviously, I'm not going to hold you to it because a good if he rebounds and has a fantastic season, you're absolutely picking that thing up. But from where you sit right now, do you foresee that happening?
I don't know. I don't mean to give you the evasive answer.
Oh, come on!
I think it's totally dependent on how he plays this year. There's so many variables. I think it's certainly possible.
But what do you project to happen, I guess?
I honestly, I could not tell you. The guy's super talented, but he is coming off the ACL, and we'll see how things look. And it hasn't been perfect even when he was healthy, although I think he was making strides last season. So it's a critical, maybe defining season for Devin Bush. And so I'm just going to kind of take it in. As we see there today, would they do it? Probably not. As we see there today at this very moment, but obviously there's a whole 17 games to play here. So I think both those things in terms of a fifth-year option and long-term deal are possible because I know how talented this guy is, and that's such a rare talent to find and to acquire for your team. So I'm not giving up on Devin Bush the way maybe some people, it feels like, kind of have soured on him. But I know this year is absolutely massive for him.
But don't you think people like listening to this show because of the predictive nature on it and to root against – probably more me than you, to be wrong on some of these definitive predictions, though? Isn't that sort of some of the character of this show, is to go out on a limb in some, because a lot of times we don't deal in hypotheticals because they're just, a lot of them are silly, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
I don't know what to base my answer off at this point because we haven't seen the guy play in over a year. And
if this was a stock, bet or any kind of future bet, though, where would you be in this situation? I'm gonna flat out tell you, which way I'm going.
I know you're going no.
Right, I'm going no. But could that obviously change? Yeah. I do think that how he plays in 2021, this is a huge season for him. Make no mistake about it. Mm-hmm. And but I want us to try to predict what that season kind of looked like and what the decision will look like, but next spring.
Yeah, as we see there today with all the available information, I guess I'm a no because I don't think there's enough there to say yes at this moment. But I know how easily things can change, and I certainly haven't given up on his play. And I think he looked good last year before the ACL tear, and so and again I want to give him a ton of credit for getting his body ready for Week 1 this year. That was such a long road back, and I think we kind of overlooked that. With all the Twitter stuff and those kinds of things. So I'm just kind of at we'll see. But if you're making me give an answer, then I guess I'll say no.
Okay. And do you see Deontay Johnson getting a second contract from the Steelers?
Well, I know you talk about, not giving out second year or second contracts to receivers, but certainly I think he could definitely be in play to maybe break that mold a little bit, because I think he will have a really strong season. I think the drops will be less of an issue this year than they were last season, at least. Let's hope so. So yes, absolutely, I think it's possible.
Do you think he will get one though, and do you think it will be top 10 wide receiver money?
I think the first question's easier for me to answer than the second. I would say yes, I think he will. Where that's going to fall exactly, again, partially dependent on his play. I mean, I guess we're assuming he plays well for him to get that second contract. So I think it'd be right up there, right around top 10, top 15.
I'll go no. All right.
Okay.
On that.
And just based off of
that, look, I mean, Juju I don't think Juju'd be back if they didn't get him for the price they got him at, right?
Yeah, he took less to come here, so I think that's true.
So is Deontay Johnson, is his potential to be, the Raiders just waived Tanner Muse. Isn't that super hybrid Clemson kid?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he is.
Interesting. Is Deontay Johnson the next Antonio Brown?
No, he's not at that level.
Right.
That just because he isn't, that doesn't preclude him from not getting a second contract with Pittsburgh.
And who else do you have to potentially pay mega bucks on this Steelers team right now? That's already here.
Yeah, it's a good question.
You don't have a tackle for a while that you have to worry about paying, right?
Yeah, you don't have a tackle almost in general that's worth paying right now. But yeah, you mentioned Kevin Dotson. I mean, obviously he's only in year 2 of his rookie contract, but that time might go by pretty quick here.
Right. I mean, nobody, unless you do something with Tuitt here coming up pretty soon. I mean, I suppose you can make an argument that Tuitt could see one more big deal.
Right. Yeah, that's true. When's this deal up? Is it next year?
I think it's after 2022.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. That might be a good one. Obviously, see how the season goes. Hopefully, after this injury passes, he stays healthy, because that's always been the bugaboo with him, and why that breakout season happened last season, because he was healthy the entire year. So hopefully he's able to come back after 3 games and have another outstanding season.
All right. But, I mean, you get where I'm going at here. This might be the last mega contract for a while here. Definitely at this kind of level. Once again, we expect Minkah to get, to be a top paid safety there. But beyond that, makes you kind of wonder what's the next one.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, certainly. I mean, just finding that 30 million plus player is either a quarterback or usually like the top defensive player at his position. And so, those guys don't grow on trees, obviously. And so once you get past Watt, Minkah, who's not going to get 30 million, obviously, then, you're trying to find that elite top level talent. And obviously those guys are hard to find.
All right. Where to now?
Let's see what else I had here in my notes. You mentioned the Watt contract post Minkah. Is that everything, Dave? I think there was one thing I feel like I'm missing here.
Oh, I'm trying to remember.
Something about the roster. I just have something about the training camp roster written, or not the training camp, but just the overall state of the roster right now. Something in my notes.
Yeah, just how everything has materialized here, and
yeah.
Did we adjust the report that Carl Joseph might get promoted here, but by week 1 through some means, whether it be an elevation or.
Right, I believe so. I think we had mentioned it maybe. But, that was the report that he's going through COVID protocol now, and that the expectation is he'll be promoted in some form or fashion. I assume that would take like a UG3 spot. I'm still kind of shocked UG3's on this roster after all that waiver roster moves.
Yeah, well, I mean, by Wednesday for sure, because we'll see on the injury report what happens with Marcus Allen, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he avoided IR. Now, could he still miss week 1? That's certainly possible.
Right.
But I am surprised to see UG3 still here.
Okay, I guess we are an hour into this now. So is there anything else that we need to wrap up here?
Let me take a look here at the site. Nice article here by Josh Carney on Steven Sims and what he brings. Kind of a McLeod clone is the phrase there that Josh used for that report. Certainly worth checking out. And I did an article this morning, and again, I know we've beaten the dead horse on the whole, this is a brand new offensive line. Look at how many question marks there are. But according to my research, since the 1970 merger, first time in Steelers history, they'll have an entirely brand new starting 5 up front compared to week 1 the previous year compared to week 1 the following year. And so that's a lot of newness, obviously, for this offensive line.
And also wrote about the miles this team won't have to travel in 2021. Second fewest behind, I think, Cincinnati. And not surprising that you have really the whole division, I think, there, the whole AFC North in like the top 5 or top 6 fewest miles, because obviously they share the similar schedule there. And the Steelers, of course, only play 8 road games versus 9 at home, so that helps out in the whole mileage thing on top of it there. So they won't be able to blame any of that stuff on being in the air a lot, that's for sure.
Right. Let me ask you one last question here, Dave. An article I wrote over the weekend: will Pat Freiermuth catch 30 passes this season?
Man, I still want to take the under there, I think. Be honest with you, if unless something happens with Ebron, I would be very inclined to take the under there.
Yeah, I've kind of gone back and forth. I mean, that's only 1.8 receptions per game if he plays all 17 games, and Jesse James did that in a similar situation, playing about half the snaps, I think, in 2017, 2018. So I'm kind of on the fence, but I asked that question because only 2 Steelers rookie tight ends in history have ever caught 30-plus passes their first year. That was Heath Miller with 39 in 2005 and Eric Green with 34 in 1990. So we'll see if Freiermuth becomes the third member of that club.
Look, I mean, I think he could be that guy, especially if you're in touchdown-only leagues or whatnot, which I still draft in one of those every year for fantasy purposes there. I mean, he could be a guy that ends up with, 22 catches with 6 of them, 7 of them being touchdowns. That I don't think I'd be shocked at that. I mean, he's obviously a guy that can help you inside the red zone. We saw that during the preseason. I would still think, though, that overall, with what your experience and how you can use them in the offense. Now, I don't think Ebron's going to catch what he maybe caught last year. His numbers might take a little bit, but unless Ebron's hurt and misses games, I still think it'd be kind of hard for what was the over under there? 32 or 30 or what?
Just 30.
Yeah, that's right at that. I would take the under, I think, right now.
Yeah, man, I'm right. I could go either way, but just wanted to put that up there as kind of an interesting stat to track this offseason. So anything else, Dave, or do you want to get to some reader emails and close out today's show?
Yeah, I guess we start wrapping it up, because the sooner we wrap this up, the sooner the Watt news will break there. I don't think we have many of them in here anyway. Bryce writes in, when it comes to offensive line, the X factor this season will be the following 2 people, Matt Canada and Adrian Clem. With the current situation, it's so much there's not some individual talent on this group, but so more as a collective. There's very slim margin for error because they haven't played together. So to me, it means Canada and Clem are going to have to be top of their game from the start with play calls, scheme, strategy to help for the line's lack of experience. If they're not, it's going to be a long year. I mean, I think it just comes down to really what we've said all along, just the offensive line, it being an X factor, to be honest with you. If your line's not playing well, then, I mean, you better have some damn good calls to help overcome that kind of stuff there. He says, even though they've all been saying it's going to be business as usual with the current personnel in the secondary, as it could we see more Minkah Fitzpatrick lining up in the slot in different situations? I tell you, when you hear Minkah talk, Minkah doesn't sound like he has any interest other than being tied to the post.
Yeah, I mean, I get the idea there because the slot options don't feel super plentiful right now if this team really wants to keep Sutton outside. But then who's going to replace Minkah? And yeah, Minka's best role is getting to be free safety and getting to spin down and rotate into that robber coverage. So, I mean, occasionally, of course, that'll happen against maybe some base personnel and things like that. But it's not going to happen too often.
And look, and we'll have our predictions and more of a preview as the week goes on, looking ahead at what we think potentially happen in 2021, not only with the Steelers but the rest of the NFL there. But man, I don't think kind of our overarching thoughts have changed much. I do think the defense has definitely and assuming things get worked out with Watt here and he doesn't miss time or anything like that, I think the defense is in a slightly better place than it was, obviously going into OTAs and things like that. One of my biggest concerns heading into this offseason is how much of a step would this defense take back, and how big of a step forward could the offense take to help offset that? I think the defensive side of the ball has done their part to at least lessen my concern. I still think I'll be surprised if they post an adjusted net yards per passing attempt number, what it was last year. But I think that this defense can play good enough, period, to obviously keep you in games. The question still is the whole offensive line thing. I mean, they obviously have skill positions and that they've kept healthy, knock on wood, in Juju and Claypool and Deontay Johnson and James Washington, an athletic tight end in Ebron, a nice young prospect in Pat Freiermuth. You went out and got a running back in Najee Harris. You got a veteran, smart quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger. You got a new offensive coordinator in Matt Canada there. You can't help but not think about this offensive line.
Sure, they are the X factor. Like I said, I've been saying this for months. They're the X factor, not only the offense, but for the entire team. As they go, so will the rest of this offense, and so will this team. And so, no doubt about it. Now, I think defensively, certainly, Melvin Ingram, what a key signing that was.
Ooh, boy, that guy's an animal.
Better. Yeah, and with the Watt situation and just having the depth there just in general is so important. Now, I don't want to lose sight of how much of a loss Tua is for the first 3 games. I'm not saying you are. I'm sure most people recognize how good he is, but that certainly is a blow because he was just a freak last season. And so there's depth here to replace him, but it's still tough to replace Stephon Tuitt overall.
Boy, if you can get through these first 3 or 4, if you could guarantee me that Tuitt comes back in week 4, and then this team's like 2-1, then I mean, and then you've gotten through some of that growing pains with that, early growing pains that we expect with the offensive line kind of thing. The there will certainly be a lot of optimism there. So, Tuitt's, I don't want to just brush it off, but at least you've got some talent on that defensive line there, and at least you've got you added a guy in Melvin Ingram that's really, really good against the run on top of things. There. So if they can kind of get through this first quarter of the season, if you will, without maybe a full T.J. Watt, and without Tuitt for the first 3 games there, with the growing pains, I think that'll say a lot about this team.
Yeah, and that's why I like to get too hyper-focused on schedules and matchups and all that and the strength of it. But, man, you want to have a hot start to start this season because that back end of the schedule gets so brutal. So to start 2-1 for sure, ideally the first couple weeks, you're, I don't know, even 4-1, you want to be you want to give yourself a cushion there because that schedule gets really, really tough late in this thing.
All right, Cameron Blackburn writes in about Witherspoon. Witherspoon topped the charts in RAS score, a subject in which the Steelers' other top outside guys, Hayden, Sutton, and Pierre, all received failing grades. Did the Steelers go out and get Witherspoon so they had someone who could run with Ty Hill and Hollywood Brown if the team makes a run in the AFC? I mean, I get the question for sure, but I don't think you just go out to get a guy just because of those 2 guys. I mean, I think you. It's gonna really be interesting to see at the start of this season, especially what they do in the nickel here. Who's going to be your starter outside? Who's going to actually play in the slot? I mean, the fact that they got Witherspoon and him having the good RAS score and those kind of things. I think it's just kind of what Kevin Colbert does. Pedigree, athleticism, just outside guys that you bring in after the fact, that kind of thing there. I hope we don't have to get into a spot where we're heavily looking at a Witherspoon versus Ty Hill Hollywood Brown matchup.
Yeah, I don't think you can put it in those black and white terms, but I think getting that that athletic corner in a secondary room where the athleticism on paper is not super high is certainly, positive overall. Let me ask you this, Dave. For the first snap in nickel against Buffalo on Sunday, who's the right corner and who's the slot corner? Haynes the left corner, but where are you at? I'll go first here. I'll say still Pierre is the right corner and Sutton in the slot.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. I'm not. If I had to bet which way it go, okay, it would be that one. But man, some of the answers that they give sometimes when talking about this don't give you a lot of comfort, man. It really doesn't. I think that should be the way that they go, and I think 8 times out of 10 we're usually right and kind of projecting this stuff. But man, it's just the way they are answering some of these questions. I don't have a lot of comfort in betting the house on it. I'll tell you that. But I do think that that's the way they should go.
Yeah, I'm a lot less confident than I should be because I feel like it's a no-brainer, and the Steelers have made this more vague and up in the air than what I think it warrants.
All right, Richard Jameson writes in, and he wants to write about the Nick Corte tweet. So it appears and Corte, the tweet that he references here is the one that Corte says, so it appears the Steelers will yield 5th rounders in both 2022 and 2023 in order to acquire Ahkello Witherspoon. And Richard says, so did it cost 2 5th-round picks to get Witherspoon? I think that's yet to be determined. There's obviously a lot of things that can, with the Joe Hague snaps, and I think even with Witherspoon snaps as well too, it's not written in stone, but that's the way it looks right now. I think would be the best way to answer that.
Yeah, but if it does work out the way that it could work out, I mean, you could say that by the end of the season if Witherspoon plays a lot and does cancel out that Filer pick. I mean, that would be an accurate way to describe the situation, I think.
Right. I mean, we'll just have to see how the playing time goes more than anything on the 2 guys in particular, and I think in Hague and in Witherspoon, right?
Yeah, is he getting one of those Wormley guys you want to re-sign after the season for that 1 year, only 1 year you get him for, maybe?
I mean, history tells you that Witherspoon's going to be one and done, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you lose 2 5th-round picks for 1 year of Witherspoon who plays, maybe in a dime roll or something, is it worth it? I mean, we'll see. Obviously, big hypothetical question there, but just something to think about.
I mean, because even though he's technically under contract for 2022, that's a void year, and I don't have the date on the void yet, but I would think that it's probably 5 days after the Super Bowl. If not, it voids the day before free agency starts. So I guess technically you would have more of time to unvoid that thing, work out something with him. But he really would have to play. You would think that Witherspoon's in a position right now where he's thinking, boy, I got a good chance of maybe having a good year here and making, getting myself on free agency and making some money here. That I probably wouldn't get from the Steelers.
Right. I mean, we'll see. Million variables there, but some thought that's crossed my mind here.
All right, I got a lot of stuff scheduled for Steelers Depot this week that I'm waiting on the Watt axe to fall here. Going to be writing about some free agents. Going to be writing about the team's cap situation. For 2022, a lot of things, and then obviously season projections, a lot of things that I normally do this time of year, kind of dependent on waiting on this TJ Watt hammer to fall. I'm trying to stretch this out because just knowing that as soon as we get off this thing is when this news is going to break here. What else? We'll obviously be previewing the season, moving ahead into this week on the podcast. On Wednesday, we'll obviously have the Bills beat writer on to talk to him as well too. Any kind of final thoughts here, Alex? Anything you're looking forward to the rest of this week?
We'll have our live stream tonight on YouTube. Dave and I talking 7 to 8. I might cut the live stream a little bit short. We have some fantasy football drafts that are coming up here this evening, but we'll have that. And just getting ready for Bills. We got to get back on that kind of week 1 game mode. So scouting reports will be up later this week from us and the guys. And so excited to get back kind of into the flow of the regular season.
All right, playtime is over. Time to get busy. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button upper right navigational bar to make a secure donation that way. Also, if you would like a ad-free version of this of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button for $25 for 1 calendar year. You can have an ad-free version of the site as well, too. And once again, busy week on SteelersDepot.com heading into the Steelers Week 1 game on Sunday against the Buffalo Bills. So with that, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.